بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أفضل المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Monsieur de Montbriand, je vous remercie pour cette invitation. Mesdames et messieurs, je veux que vous m'excusez de ne vous parler pas en français. Les mots et les idées, les paroles sont ici, mais l'exprimer dans la bouche et la langue, c'est très difficile. Alors, je vous parlerai en anglais. The president of Estonia described Saudi Arabia as a petro country, and we are a petro country. But I assure you, Mr. President, that we pose no threat to Europe. And as such, we're also a developing country, and a developing country that has much to do, whether in terms of human rights, political development, social development, or economic development. When I was growing up, I was sent by my father to the United States for my education because he thought that that was where I would learn how to deal with the world. And much of my compatriots, or many of my compatriots, were also sent abroad, whether to the US or Europe, mainly the US and Europe, to acquire their skills and know-how to meet the challenges of the world. Because the US and Europe, when I was growing up, were the model, if you like, or the example for developing countries to seek knowledge and experience. I must say, in the last few weeks particularly, that example has not lived up to our expectations, whether in the economic, political, or social development. And it's been a growing disappointment from the view of someone like me who grew up in the West, in the value system, if you like, that made the West what it is today. When the issues of economics and politics and social development are considered, we see a lot of double standards being applied throughout the world. During the post-World War era, when the West and the Soviet Union were in contention, there was pretty much a courtship by both sides of smaller countries like Saudi Arabia. And as the Prime Minister of Kenya said, things or considerations of governance or dictatorship or other authoritarian aspects were overlooked in that competition to seek support from the smaller countries. But with the fall of the Soviet Union, a new order took place. America adopted an interventionist policy, a unilateral policy that became official US policy and began an experience and if you like, an attempt to mold the world in its own image, whether in Afghanistan or in Iraq. Since that time, after September 11th, there has been, if you like, a return to consideration of that unilateralist policy. And as Monsieur Montbriand mentioned in his opening remarks, the theory of the end of history is being revised now. And coming from the developing world, I agree with Mr. Hoagland that we need to seek new ways and new means to go on and meet the challenges of the 21st century. Those challenges, in my view, are the following. Ideological competition for the minds and hearts of the young people, particularly in the Arab and Muslim world, when we have the extremist interpretations of Islam being proposed and posed as an alternative to the middle way or the way that countries would seek to develop themselves. And that is very much linked, in my view, to the actions and policies of the developed world, particularly the United States, when it comes to the double standard that I referred to. And that double standard includes the issues of politics in the Middle East, whether it is the Palestinian-Israeli issue, whether it is the atomic development in Iran, and the way that, for example, America is dealing with India, which is a non-signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and the way it is dealing with Iran, which is a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Europe as well has been dealing in the same manner with that issue. For us in Saudi Arabia, we'd like to see the whole area out of the nuclear armaments race. But that should not be just Iran considered in that context, but countries like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Israel, which already has nuclear weapons, should also be included in that factor. On economics, of course, which is what everybody is concerned about today, the failure of the economic system in America, and now it seems to be spreading into Europe as well, makes us pause in our part of the world to see whether the systems and the means that we want to adopt should be based on European and American standards of economics. It just doesn't make sense to see a system that is failing adopted for future development in a country like Saudi Arabia. We need to sit down together with the Europeans and the Americans particularly and devise ways to meet this failure that is taking place. Energy is an important issue between us as developing countries and as countries that have, as the President said, this petro addition to it. We have to sit down and talk with the Europeans and the Americans and the rest of the world community on how to overcome this very vital and very important problem that faces the world, not just ecologically, but even economically. The high price of oil, from the view of Saudi Arabia, does not serve well the purposes of the poor countries, let alone the richer countries. Countries like Kenya have to pay a very high price for their energy needs, and they don't have the resources to do that. America and Europe are much richer, and if I may say that many European countries actually make more money out of our oil than we do because of the taxes that they put on energy and oil. But it doesn't make sense for a country like the United States or Europe in general to consider that in a us and them fashion. Rather, let us come together and look upon this issue globally so that if there are going to be alternative uses or alternative sources of energy, we should be considering them with coal and oil and other accepted means and gas for providing energy. I could go on much longer, but I know my time is drawing short. And I would say that in context, Europe and as the President of the European Parliament said, and the Arab and Muslim world also have to come closer because each of them affects the other directly. We've seen an exchange about or rather an engagement about the exchange of goods and services between Europe and the Arab and Muslim world, but nothing at all about the exchange of human beings between Europe and the Arab and Muslim world, and that should be addressed. It's a problem that Europe faces, and of course we on the other side of the Mediterranean also face it with the Europeans.
Your Royal Highness, thank you.